Welcome to Channel's Business Global with me, Juliana Olayinka, from our studios here in London. On today's show, from January 2024, foreign students who are not studying for a PhD are to be banned from bringing family members into Britain under the Home Secretary's highly controversial plans to reduce net migration. Personal development coach Toyib Adewale Adelodun will soon be joining me here in the studio for a detailed assessment of how these changes are likely to affect you and your loved ones. And staying with education, a new report suggests that African parents are neglecting their children's soft skills like leadership and critical thinking to prioritise career-focused learning. Choices that Alessandro Capozzi, head of sixth form at King's Interhigh, claims could impact their future. I'll be asking him why shortly. Then later, the Nigerian-British Chamber of Commerce embarked on a trade mission to the United Kingdom this week to market the ease of doing business in Nigeria and to attract foreign direct investments into the country. Channel's Business Global spent some time at one of their workshops, and I'll be bringing you those highlights later on in the show. But first, the Governor of the Bank of England has said there is still a chance for the British government to meet its pledge to halve inflation this year after a welcome drop below double digits in April. CPI fell sharply to 8.7% last month, the lowest rate since August 2022. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak previously promised to halve inflation by the end of this year with a target of 5.4%. In other British business news, Boris Johnson has accused the Cabinet Office of mounting a witch hunt after he was referred to police for a meeting in the No. 10 garden with his elderly mother and sister while COVID-19 restrictions were in place. A spokesman for the former Prime Minister has denied claims that one of the visits related to an alleged ABBA-themed party in Downing Street in November 2020 and another that involved using the indoor swimming pool at Chequers. Well, for more on this, I was earlier joined in the studio by our business correspondent, Simon Pusey. Simon, so the former Prime Minister Boris Johnson back in the headlines again. Unfortunately for him, this is not about a new leadership bid. According to his spokesperson, he's the victim of a witch hunt. Yeah, so this relates to another COVID offence. He's already been reprimanded a couple of times for parties in Downing Street, as has Rishi Sunak. Let's be clear about that, for attending a birthday party at the same time. But this is to do with Chequers. This is the country residence that he visited a lot when his wife, Carrie Simons, was pregnant with her first child. She went out there. And he would commute to work, and a lot of people were raising the eyebrows at the idea of commuting during the pandemic when everyone was supposed to stay home, work from home if at all possible. His rules. Yes, his rules, exactly. So he was coming and going from Chequers, and police are now have now released reports from his own diary, as in from his own sort of ministerial diary, about who the comings and goings to Chequers and family and friends going to visit him at a time when you weren't allowed to visit people unless it was in a sort of COVID bubble. So the question here is this politically motivated, and is this a witch hunt, which is, of course, his spokesperson says it is. All sounds quite Trumpian, this kind of, witch hunt, or that this is some kind of, stitch-up, political stitch-up from maybe allies of Rishi Sunak who don't want him around. Obviously, Boris Johnson and Rishi Sunak no longer friends after Rishi took over. So it's hard to know really what's happening, but there are now two different inquiries into potential breaches of the rules, which on top of all of the other ones. Exactly, and I think it's hard to see this bringing him down because he's already been through this a number of times. There's two lines of thought here. There's one from a public perspective. We're bored with this. We've seen this before. He's no longer Prime Minister. Give the guy a break, And then there's other people who are saying, actually, I had to stay home. I couldn't see loved ones. I couldn't go to funerals or weddings. And this is totally unacceptable for someone who set the rules. So we are going to have a big inquiry that's coming up, and this is why this has eventually been released, is that ahead of the inquiry, lots of evidence is being released. Yeah. So we are going to see this, and it is going to be mulled over all again in a very formal setting. But I think it's not obviously a good look for Boris Johnson. Or Rishi. Or Rishi Sunak, no. But Boris Johnson at the moment sort of on the talking format, on making speeches for lots and lots of money, very rarely in Parliament now, very rarely seen in the Commons making speeches or really representing his constituents. He's having a great time. Yeah, there is obviously an election coming up. He's in a very safe Tory seat, and he has enough people to vote him in again. But I don't think this is going to be his downfall. A lot of people are saying, is this the end of Boris Johnson, or is this the start of the end for Boris Johnson? I don't think it is, because I think we've seen this all before. And what
will probably happen. The worst will be another fine for COVID breaches. It's making the headlines again, but it's nothing we haven't really seen before.
Absolutely. He denies all of the allegations that have been put to him, doesn't he? Thank you, Simon. Britain announced a record level of net migration on Thursday, with 606,000 people entering these shores in 2022. It means immigration added a city roughly the size of Glasgow to the UK's population last year. The data follows an announcement made this week by the Home Secretary, Suella Braverman, which said that from January 2024, students who are not studying for a PhD are to be banned from bringing family members to Britain, under the government's plans to reduce net migration by about 100,000. This week's announcement has received significant backlash from Nigerians who last year applied for more family visas for foreign students than any other nationality. Well, for more on this, I was earlier joined in the studio by personal development coach Toyib Adewale Adelodun. Toyib Adewale Adelodun, very popular individual on social media. Thank you so much for joining me in the studio. It's actually nice to see you away from Twitter and in real life. Firstly, your thoughts on this highly controversial change in visa rule for foreign students?
I think for us to really understand it, we have to go back a little bit. I think a lot of people are quite surprised, but they don't know that it usually happens. And if we look at the government we've had over the last, here in the UK, over the last
12 years.
12 years. I mean, the approach right from David Cameron's time was that to reduce net migration to tens of thousands. That was his plan. But it didn't happen. So many things happened since then. We had Theresa May when she removed the post-study work visa around 2012. So it was removed, and then around 2019, it was reinstated again. So in 2019, the UK did the International Education Strategy report, where they said they wanted 600,000 students to come to the UK annually. It was something they wanted to boost their economy.
They pursued this.
Yeah, they pursued it. So, and part of the deal, when they did it, was like, okay, let master's students, degree students should not come with their dependents, but master's students and PhD students can come with their dependents. Because after Brexit, the government was looking for a way to boost the economy. And I was just doing a simple maths, you know, like in the last 2 years, they've hit 600,000. So that's 1.2 million students. If they are paying £15,000 every year, you know, that is 18 billion.
It's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money. So, and there is no way these dependents are coming. They pay their NHS fees, you know, they pay their visa fees, which is around £1,000, you know. That's another 1.2 billion pounds. So they are not coming, they have no recourse to public funds, you know. So they are coming, they are paying through the system, they are spending into the system, you know. The Higher Education Policy Institute, the independent think tank in the UK, said international students in the last 1 year have brought about 41 billion pounds in terms of economic value. So you could see the Prime Minister trying to, you know, appeal to his voting base to show that he's on top of immigration. But you look at the policy on both sides. You can't say you want 600,000 students and say you don't want dependents. These are older people that have families. Yes.
Clearly, migration is an issue. And even the Shadow Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, is backing this bill to stop foreign students from bringing in their dependents. 29% of Tory voters, as you said, the benchmark of the support for Rishi Sunak, support bringing down migration. How do you balance the argument of we're being targeted with the reality of what Britain is facing at the moment?
I mean, like you said, balance is the key here. So there are areas where Britain has got shortages. Let me give you an example. I was reading recently that there are shortage of teachers, right? And the UK government is actually planning to pay some people a relocation fee.
£10,000, yes.
To come and teach, you know. So, and these dependents that we are talking about, they are not hanging around here. They are actually filling sectors. You know, the healthcare sector, since the pandemic, since UK has been out of EU, there's a huge shortage there. These people are actually contributing to the economy. So I mean, it's kind of eat your cake and have it kind of thing, or kind of have that balance to say, okay, are these people good for us? Are they actually working into the economy? Or you have to have that that thought through.
Fascinating speaking with you. I know you have a wealth of knowledge when it comes to getting a visa and building up your career in Britain and elsewhere. Toyib Adewale Adelodun, a personal development coach, amongst many other hats that you wear. Thank you so much for joining me in the show.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Staying with education, but pivoting slightly, a new report suggests that African parents are neglecting their children's soft skills like leadership and critical thinking to prioritise career-focused learning. Choices that Alessandro Capozzi, head of sixth form at King's Interhigh, claims could impact their future. Why and how? Let's ask him as he joins me now from Brighton. Alessandro Capozzi, thanks so much for joining me on the show today. So according to data from your institution, 24% of parents globally say their children know exactly what they want to be when they're older and are on the right path to getting there. Should we be concerned about the 76% who potentially are saying that their children are unaware?
I don't think we should be overly concerned. I think it's important to remember children's plans change throughout their lives. Adults' plans change throughout their lives. Some of us are doing different jobs today that we were 10 years ago. But I think it's important to be aware of it and make sure that we put in good actions now to support children to think about that and put themselves in a great position so they can be flexible later on.
Absolutely. I know that one of the initiatives, or should we say calls from King's Interhigh, is that parents, particularly those in West Africa, most of our viewers watching, they want their children to study maths, they want them to be engineers, they want there to be doctors. But you're suggesting that there should be more of a focus on soft skills, such as leadership management skills and critical thinking. Why do you think we should take this more seriously? Even though for some people it could seem obvious, for others, clearly it's not.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a blend is important. Those core academic skills are really vital, and you develop that subject knowledge that's going to help you throughout your life. But at the same time, it's how you might apply that, because the way you use it in the classroom and for exams is very different to the way you might use it later on. So being a resilient learner and flexible, critical thinking, communication skills, those soft skills that you mentioned, giving students the opportunities to develop those, to understand what they mean for them, because they're different for every individual. You communicate in different ways. That's super important, because that's what they're going to need to get jobs, but to thrive in an environment where people operate very differently. They may be in a very globalized industry where they're working with people in West Africa, they're working with people in the UK, in Asia, wherever. They've got to kind of practice those things. And it's useful for parents and carers to have that in mind. It's not just that academic study, although that is still very, very important.
Can you talk to us about some of the work that King's Interhigh are doing with institutions to ensure that the right subjects are being learnt in West Africa, so these skills can be transferable and they can be employable anywhere, including in the UK?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, first of all, it's thinking really carefully as part of the Inspired group, which King's Interhigh is one of a number of schools, to make sure we've got the best curriculum possible. We teach world-renowned British curriculum, but also the IB diploma programme. It's really crucial to offer our older students both of these different options, because they can make choices that we already know by virtue of doing those qualification routes. They're going to be highly employable, they're going to get to go to great universities, but also they're going to be able to study subjects they really enjoy that make them not just successful at getting into those places, but actually thriving when they're in them as well. So that's a really crucial thing. And we work as a group to make sure our curriculum's offered really well. And then we also work with partners to make sure they've got fantastic opportunities to grow themselves personally, to understand what it is that they might want to do, to research opportunities and things like that. And that's a really crucial part of it as well. You've got to be outward facing with this when you're making your curriculum choices. And that's really kind of at the bedrock of the decision making that we do.
Alessandro Capozzi, head of sixth form at King's Interhigh, thank you so much for your time today.
You're most welcome. Thank you.
The Nigerian British Chamber of Commerce embarked on a trade mission to the UK this week to market the ease of doing business in Nigeria and to attract foreign direct investments into the country. Channel's Business Global spent some time at one of their workshops, speaking with the delegates in attendance.
Every year we have a trade mission to the UK, from Nigeria to the UK, and the whole essence is to improve trade relations between Nigeria and the UK. And we thought it was important to bring players, not just from Nigeria but from the UK in the room, to have conversations around improving trade and investment between the two countries. I think we're beginning to see things trickle down, and it's coming at a time when we're having a change of government in Nigeria. So we think that gathered together here we can come up with policies, some policy indications that can help the new administration to actually make a difference and make a change. So yes, indeed, things are beginning to change. So we facilitate networking opportunities between Nigerian businesses and, of course, those who want to do business in the UK, those who are ready to do business in the UK. And like I said, essentially a networking platform, business-to-business opportunities, and we have events that sort of advocate on behalf of our members. You know, we have a very strong advocacy platform that members who don't want to go it alone can use the umbrella of the NBCC to do that. I think it's going to get stronger, particularly with Brexit. You know, I mean, they have to look to partners like Nigeria, and they are seriously doing that now. So I think it's no longer talk as usual, and Nigerian businesses also are upping their own ante, improving standards, which is what the British are known for. And so I think less talk and more action now.
We've done a lot of homework before coming here. It took us a year to put all of this together. The whole essence is to create a platform, a unique, authentic platform where Nigerians could, work together with their British counterparts. There are loads of benefits for doing that. This is also timely. This is a time a government is transiting into another. So you know that participants in this forum want to know what the mind of the new government is. And what we've done is to come prepared, ready to answer questions that they have brought up. And I'm happy that we were able to answer these questions honestly and as professional as possible. And I think that has started a discussion for an inward, mission sometime in the second quarter, in the third quarter, I beg your pardon. And I think that's the way to go. We see a return back to London in another year, and we believe that the conversations that we have started will go further and come into some concrete achievements in the next 1 year. I have no doubt in my mind that the business for the new government is cut out. We expect certain decisions to be made very soon. We expect the new administration to hit the road running. We really don't have time. And I think that what we have seen today is that government is likely to slow down on borrowing and push a whole lot into the private sector. And that's where we come in. I think the private sector must be ready for partner PPPs, must be ready for concessioning, must be ready to work with government. The business of government is creating an enabling environment. And the business of the private sector is to take it from there. We are prepared. And I think that from what we see, there's a whole lot to do, and we are ready for it.
I think it's changing. Things are moving faster than we expected to. And, the diaspora cannot be ignored. It's a sector that brings in over $22 billion into the country every year. And what the government needs to do is look for ways of tapping into that and using it as part of the foreign direct investments that is required to create opportunities and also work on our gaps in the areas of technology, in the areas of even artificial intelligence, as well as letting people understand how to create culture from value creation. In short, rather than export of raw materials or raw products, how do we begin to appreciate and consume these products? How do we add value to them so that we can create value locally? It's very, very important.
The question that keeps me up at night or keeps us awake is how do we translate? We know that ESG is on the tip of everyone, right? We know that the West will pay 60-70% more for sustainable products. However, there's a big disconnect between global sustainability and our own, as in African, social, economic development, right? Because we have a different dynamic. Once we can bridge that, and part of the answer for me is culture eats everything for breakfast, i.e., until we tackle 90% SMEs, which Africa is made up of, right? And really engage in the culture of the SMEs to understand that we can sit in London and have a wonderful conference, but how is that information trickling down?
Now to our final story. M-Copper, a leading fintech platform, has recently announced it has closed $250 million in new debt and equity funding to expand its financial services offering to underbanked consumers across sub-Saharan Africa. This marks one of the largest combined debt and equity raises in the African tech sector and coincides with the business reaching over 3 million customers and providing over $1 billion in cumulative financing for unbanked customers across the continent. Chioma Agogo, the firm's general manager of Ghana, joins me now for more on this. Chioma Agogo, it's a pleasure speaking with you on Channel's Business Global today. I've got to say I'm pretty impressed. The fact that the Financial Times, for I think it was the second year in a row, has recognised M-Copper as being one of the fastest growing firms in Africa this year. What is the secret to your success?
Thanks, Juliana. We're definitely incredibly proud of our achievement. M-Copper is a financial technology platform, and we enable unbanked customers to access a broad range of products and services without collateral or guarantors. We combine the power of micropayments and technology to make digital credit more accessible. As a company, we focus on our customer challenges. I'll say that's one of the biggest wins for us. We're our customer challenges are pretty similar across our markets. To give you an example, 85% of households live on less than $5.50 per adult, in a household. As a result, they can't afford to purchase, most products or assets outright. Therefore, the cost of entry for a high-level quality phone, high quality smartphone, for example, costs about $100 or more. Wow. To put that in perspective, that's 60% of the monthly income of an average adult. It means if they wanted to buy this entry-level high-quality smartphone, they would need to save over long periods of time, or they would have to take credit. The challenge is really getting access to that credit. Yeah. And that's what we focus on at M-Copper.
I know you are the general manager of M-Copper in Ghana. And to be honest with you, listening to everything you said, Chioma, it doesn't sound like you're the only player in that market. I've spoken to several CEOs who are offering Africans exactly what you are, but clearly you are leading the pack. You've provided over $1 billion in cumulative financing for unbanked customers across the continent. Apart from that making your firm lots of money, what is the real impact that this is having to those who were previously segregated from the digital sector in Africa?
Yeah, you're correct, Juliana. One of the things we're incredibly proud of is that from the onset, M-Copper was actually set up to positively impact the lives of our customers. As you've said, digital, financial, and credit inclusivity is, definitely an issue in Africa. But our flexible credit model actually addresses that need. So our customers can afford to buy assets like smartphones, solar systems, e-motorbikes, just by presenting an ID and a small deposit. And then they make daily micropayments of about 30 cents every day, depending on what's easy for them every day or every week. And then customers can actually graduate from buying those assets. They can now have access to digital financial services like loans and health insurance. So definitely this creates value for the customer.
Chioma Agogo, General Manager at M-Copper in Ghana. Thank you so much for joining me on the show today.
Thank you, Juliana. It was nice to be here.
Well, sadly, that's all we have time for today, but as always, do get in touch with your comments and suggestions. I'll see you at the same time next week for more in-depth business analysis on Channel's Business Global. Goodbye.